Fear Not, Episode 100. Hi, I'm Billy Atwell, and I believe that consistently facing your fears is the only way to realize your truest self and to make those confident choices that will help you to obtain your deepest held hopes and dreams. I have faith that this podcast series will show you that you are not alone, that it will strengthen you and give you courage to face your fears, and that it will help you to permanently cross over into a life of living beyond your fears. Join me on this journey as we listen and learn from others as they share their experiences in facing and overcoming their own fears. Before the show starts, and this being our 100th episode, I just wanted to say a quick thanks to everyone for listening to the show. You are the reason why I do this show. And I want to give a special thanks and shout out to Eno Bog and Khan. You've been there from episode 1, leaving comments on Facebook and on the website and all the blogs that I've posted. You're amazing, man. I appreciate it. Hello, everybody. Today you and I are going to be joined by Karina, Virginia. Hello, Karina. How are you today?
Hi, Billy. I'm great.
Are you ready to fear not today?
I sure am.
Karina is a wellness expert for the modern world. As a motivational speaker, energy healer, yogi, inspirational mentor, and TV personality, she shares simple and transformational tips for the mainstream world. She encourages everyone to connect powerfully with their personal truth through love, compassion, inner beauty, and radiance. She's also the author of the recently published Essential Kundalini Yoga. Karina, can you take a few moments to fill in the gaps and maybe also give us a brief glimpse of your personal life?
Sure. I'm a mom and a wife, and I live a pretty mainstream life on the outside, but on the inside, I'm an extremely spiritual person who spends a couple hours every day in meditation or in a yoga practice and in prayer. And that is really a big part of who I am and where most of what I write about comes from.
Karina, would you also share with us today one of the biggest fears you've had to face?
Yeah, my biggest fear has always been the fear of success. And in that, there's been a few other fears that have trickled down from that. But I'm very clear on that fear and where it comes from, and it being also the fear of being rejected or the fear of being abandoned and the fear of not being included. But it isn't so much a fear of failure as much as it's a fear of success, because I have this mind game that plays in my mind that if I'm successful, then people won't like me anymore, right? So, or I won't be included anymore. And a lot of my fear started in high school, really, the high school trials and tribulations. But it's something that I've had to work through in my adult life as well. I do feel that the fear of success and the fear of failure are very similar. They're both the fear of being left alone. And I would say that that's the biggest fear that I have had to deal with in my life.
So how do you deal with that? Because I'm sure it's reoccurring.
Yeah, well, I don't think we ever overcome our triggers completely. We have to find a practice that works for us, whether it be working with a coach or a therapist or having a strong meditation practice or working with affirmations or mantras. Some people use tapping. There's a lot of different ways to overcome fear. My practice is Kundalini Yoga, and it's not necessarily yoga. We call it Kundalini Yoga, but it's a practice that has mantras and meditations and very deep practices that clear the subconscious mind, that clear those old thought patterns that hold us in the vibration of fear. So a lot of the work that I do is energetic. I have in my life worked with coaches and therapists, but I found that nothing has really worked for me the way that my personal practice, my personal energy, spiritual practice has, and that is the practice of Kundalini Yoga, which is a huge part of my life and a huge part of my family's life. My daughter she's 15 and she just finished her teacher training, so she's starting to bring the practice to teenagers, which is really incredible. I've always been a very deep soul, and I've always been a very deep feeler, and I've always been, since I was a child, literally since I was a child, in Sunday school on a spiritual path. Nothing has ever helped me to connect with the spiritual world and recognize that so many of the fears that we feel on the earth of the worldly realm are illusions, as much as my spiritual practice of Kundalini Yoga.
You sound like you've had quite an amazing journey to even just to get to the point where you are. So you surely must have come across some really great resources. Would you mind sharing some of those with us so that we might be able to investigate those as well?
These are such great questions. I'm so glad you're doing this because I think that this is so helpful for so many people. So thank you for doing this for all your listeners, and I really mean that. Yes, I will answer that. So I was raised Christian, and I definitely still have a very strong Christian faith, and I love all churches. I love the vibration of a church. I also love the Bible and believe very strongly in God, and the entire Christian faith is really a big part of my heart and soul. So growing up, even as a child, I would walk home from school and stop in church. And through my teenage years, that's what I had, and that's what I knew was church. So that was a very big gift in my life at the time. And then when I went to college, I was an acting major in college, and I went to college up in Ithaca, New York, and it's a very crunchy type of environment. You know, we used to call it the granola place, where we just would go into that whole new age way. And that's when I learned about yoga. And that's when I learned about meditation, and that's when I learned about chakras. And so I was only 18 studying all these things and fascinated by them. So I started with hatha yoga and meditation through college. And then I moved to New York City when I was in my early 20s, and I was an actress. And I couldn't afford to, actually, at that time, yoga wasn't even that well known. It was kind of a strange thing to do. Like, to become a vegetarian and practice yoga was not at all what it is now. So it wasn't easy to find a yoga studio, and I couldn't afford to just go to, the best of the best gyms at the time. So I joined the New York Sports Club, and I was able to work out at all the different New York sports clubs in New York City. So here I am, 22 years old, and subwaying from New York Sports Club to New York Sports Club to find yoga classes. And again, there wasn't a big selection, but there was this one on the schedule called Kundalini Yoga, and there's so many different names for even Hatha Yoga, like Anyasara Yoga, Jivamukti Yoga, Iyengar Yoga. So when I saw Kundalini Yoga, I figured, okay, it's just another branch of Hatha Yoga. So I went to the class, and I said, this is wild. What are we doing? It was so different. And the instructor said, this is not really yoga as much as it's a technology. It's a science. And I just got so addicted. So I started to study Kundalini Yoga. And really, throughout my life, I've been practicing and studying it. And even with different teachers in India that I've worked with on my own, who have, taught me the teachings from the ancient Himalayan, scriptures from years ago. So that's been really fascinating for me. But I do follow the teachings of Yogi Bhajan, and he's the man who brought Kundalini Yoga over to us. And I add in some of these great teachings that I learned from India as well. But I do truly follow the curriculum that Yogi Bhajan brought over, which is to chant a specific mantra before we begin, and to close our practice with another mantra to bring protection in, because it's such a powerful technology that we're opening ourselves, and we want to do it correctly. And this form of yoga was actually a secret in India for many, many years, until a few courageous people decided to fear not and bring it over to others. And the reason why it was secret is because it's so incredibly powerful, and it really does help melt the barriers of fear in a huge way. So that's become, a big part of my life, and I've been doing it for 20 years. In that, I still love to go to church. I still love to go to cathedrals. I still love to go to high energy places. I still, walking out in nature is huge for me. And I have a real respect and fascination with all religions. I think that there's many paths to God. We just have to find the one that works for us. And I like to say God. I know some people would rather say spirit or the divine or even the universe. But I think of the word God as just what means all of those things. And God can be the energy inside of us. It doesn't have to be, a man with a beard. We see God however we want to see God, as in this divine presence, this omnipresent presence that is what's so much more real than the mind games that keep us stuck in the patterns of fear.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's really great. Are you ready for the speed round?
Let's go. Let's have fun.
What individual, whether they be fiction or real, has made the most impact on your life?
My father, my daddy. My father moved to America from Rome when he was in his 20s, and he had nothing. He didn't even speak English. And from that, he worked his way to being able to provide for his wife and his 3 children, my mom. And my mom taught him how to speak English, and he was the most generous man I've ever met in my life. If someone said, "I like your tie," that tie became theirs. So people learned to just not compliment him too much, because he would strip down to his underwear if he needed to. And he really recognized that the greatest joy in life is in service, in giving, and in helping other people. And he inspired me to live that way. And I do live that way. I live in a way of really truly sharing my heart and soul as much as possible with strangers, and really to trust that I'm protected in that. So he's definitely been my greatest role model. He passed away at 65, but he's my angel now, that's for sure.
If you could instantly change one thing in the world, what would you change?
War and hatred.
What's your biggest weakness?
I'm super sensitive, so I feel everything, and that's very hard sometimes.
What's your biggest strength?
That I have an extremely open, big heart, and I love very deeply.
If you could only have one book to read, what book is that going to be?
I think it would be the Bible. Either the Bible or A Course in Miracles. Those are the 2 books that, are, if I had to pack and go somewhere and I could only bring 2 books, those are the 2 books I would bring, because they're so rich, and you can just read little bits and have it forever, both of them.
Do you have a favorite sound?
The sound of the ocean.
And Karina, if someone would like to connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
My website is KarinaVirginia.com. It's Karena, Virginia, which is like the state of Virginia.com.
And what parting advice would you like to leave with us today?
Just to stay in your authentic truth. Be who you are. Trust that who you are is more than enough, and shed those barriers that hold you back from being everything that the world needs you to be. And if you're interested in learning about Kundalini Yoga, my book is called Essential Kundalini Yoga, and it's published by Sounds True. It can be found at all major bookstores or on Amazon, and it's a very accessible way to understand the teachings in a very demystified way. And I highly recommend it if it resonates with you. But in general, just find something that works for you, that takes you out of the mind games, out of the mind chatter, away from fear, and into that all-encompassing high vibration of love.
Thank you for that. And I want to let everyone know, too, that Karina has generously donated a copy of Essential Kundalini Yoga that we'll be giving away. So if you would like the opportunity to win that book, visit the giveaways page at livingbeyondyourfears.com and submit your free entry form today. Karina, I really want to thank you so much for coming on the show today and just being an inspiration. Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure, Billy. Thank you for having me, and thank you all for listening, and I wish you all a blessed, beautiful day.
Thank you for joining me today. And remember, you cannot achieve everything, but you do have the God-given ability to achieve anything. So stay focused, out of fear, and keep on keeping on. Until next time, be well and peaceful. For more information on today's episode and guest, or for resources that will assist you in overcoming your fears, visit livingbeyondyourfears.com. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast, where 3 times a week we move to a life beyond our fears.